as far as opportunities, I feel like right now is maybe the greatest owner financing opportunity we've had in the last decade.
Yes.
Because you know, I, I've made seller financing offers for 15 years now, right? And more of them than ever are being accepted.
Welcome to the Xplor Show, where we dive into the worlds of entrepreneurship, real estate, and motivation. Each week, we bring you inspiring conversations with people who are exploring new frontiers and shaping the business world. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get to the show. Hey, welcome back to the Xplor Show with Scott and Ryan. Scott, how you doing, man?
Hey, Ryan, doing pretty well. Beautiful day here in Kansas City, so I cannot complain.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, we got a really exciting episode today. We got a guest on with us. He is an experienced professional in raising private capital, hard money lending in residential and commercial. He's an expert in deal structuring and using self-directed retirement accounts to fund deals. And you probably know him more from Twitter, Casey Mericle. Thanks for coming on.
Casey, what's going
Thanks
on,
for,
man?
thanks for having me, Scott and Ryan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Casey,
Yes.
why don't you just kind of, I gave a quick pitch about you, but kind of tell us about yourself. I know you're from Springfield. You're a Twitter dog. You're always on Twitter. But what else about, people might
Some
not
of the
know
best
about you?
content on Twitter you guys will find when it comes to deal
Definitely.
structures and flows of deals in real estate.
Yeah.
Oh, swoon. Well, thank you. Yeah. So, well, I'm Casey Mericle. I live in Missouri, and I make deals. And people say, "Well, where do you make deals?" And I do stuff all over the country. Just depends. I like some places better than others. Um, yeah. And you asked me what?
Just
Say it
about
again?
yourself, kind of give us a breakdown of kind of what you're doing and who you are.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a real estate junkie. I've been uh, in real estate for 20 years now. It took me about 5 years to do my first deal, analysis paralysis. Uh, I got into buying foreclosures on the courthouse steps. I got a sugar mama that had enough money to give me my beginning in that. Flipped a
Sounds like
couple
all three
houses.
of us have that same thing. We were all smart men, found great women.
Yes, absolutely. I flipped a couple houses, and then I sat there one day and I was like, well, I work a full-time job, and then I come and flip houses full-time, and I'm married and I have a child on the way. How am I going to do all this? And so that kind of morphed into um, figuring out how could I make more money and spend less time. And that morphed into getting into mortgages and notes, and then from there, I got into creative deal structuring, hard money lending, and then commercial stuff. So, yeah, there's not a lot of asset classes that I haven't done or thought about, but there's a few. I'm pretty
Casey, when it
agnostic.
comes to creative deal structuring, explain that a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah. So there's a most people. This is how most people make a real estate deal: offer, counter offer, counter offer. Back and forth, back and forth. A lot of times it's over an email, right? Well, um, that's an awful way to get a deal done, right? um, because you don't really know anything about what the other side wants, right? And so for me, I can have a straight as an arrow deal that's offer counter offer, and I've done many of those over the course of my career. But um, creative deal structure for me is, how can we tweak the terms to make the deal better, right? And so, and a lot of times for me, that's seller financing, but it doesn't have to be like creative deal structure could be a trade. Creative deal structure could be a lot of different things. So it's just not your normal offer counter offer deal.
And I would say in today's market, tell me if I'm wrong, but on our end, we're seeing a lot more of this creative financing when it comes to especially owner financing. Have you guys experienced much of that? And if so, what kind of opportunities on the owner financing are you guys running across?
Yeah. Um, yes, I would say I'm noticing that. Uh, as far as opportunities, I feel like right now is maybe the greatest owner financing opportunity we've had in the last decade.
Yes.
Because you know, I've made seller financing offers for 15 years now, right? And more of them than ever are being accepted, or at least considered, right? And so right now, for me, deal flow is pretty good. And I, but I, I source all my own stuff, so I can't really. It's hard to teach a virtual assistant how to how to
It
create a
is.
structured deal.
Everyone
Um,
talks about virtual assistants, and I have struggled to find exactly what you're saying because it's just that's what you're good at. It's hard to teach that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that it's impossible, but it's yeah. I all I'll say is my deal flow is pretty good right now from what it normally is. Bid ask spread is quite large. Sellers are still thinking they can get 2021 prices. um, Reality hasn't hit them that the market's not there anymore. That people can easily put their money in, a bond or something government backed and make 5%, and they want to have a cap rate that's 5%, and that's risk free versus risk. So I'm basically bridging that gap with seller financing. Essentially, I can typically, well, depending on, I might be able to pay a higher price if I've got really stellar seller financing terms to do so. So
Casey,
What's a typical seller finance deal look like for you then? So are you why I guess why would the seller want to do that in your eyes? What's the advantage for the seller there?
and then also, what asset class are you seeing more seller financing? Because I mean, a lot of people real estate they go to a house, So
uh,
what asset class are you getting these seller finance deals?
any asset class.
Yeah,
And
across the
and
board.
Scott, go back to your question again. Sorry. So
Yeah, I was saying, what's the benefit to the seller to do seller
yeah.
financing, and what's a typical deal look like compared to maybe going to a bank?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Scott, let's pretend you're selling a building, right? And your building is a million. You say your building's worth $1 million and not a dime less. Your only problem is that you've been sitting on the market for 9 months and haven't been offered anywhere near that. And you're watching the market go down, and you're starting to sweat, and you're going like this, just like you did a second ago, right? And so I come to you and I say, hey, Scott, listen. I don't know if a million's the right number, right? But if it was the right price, it'd be sold already. So let's agree it's not the right price. And then we hem and haw and go back and forth for a minute. And then maybe I say to you, hey, but I could get pretty close. Like I could get to 900,000, right? And but you're going to have to basically take an income stream in order to get there. So, and an income stream looks like payments. And I'm not even going to make you walk to your mailbox because I think that's too far for you and you're working too hard. So why don't I just direct deposit it in your account on a monthly basis, and we'll agree to 900,000, but it's got to be on terms that are good enough for me. And terms that are good enough for me is less than I could get at a bank, or better than I can get at a bank. Less interest, but better terms than I could get at a bank. So this allows you to maybe I come up to 900, or maybe I pay you your full million because it's not worth a dime less than that because you say so. But a lot of times I can make it up in the financing. My cash flow still works out the same. A lot of times it works out better. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one of the biggest things as the investor. Would you agree that a lot of the times it's the cash flow piece that's the advantage for you?
yeah,
And then as on the seller side, you're talking, there's several advantages in my opinion. You could, with charging interest, you're now making
mhm,
additional money. So you're making more than that potential $1 million or
yeah,
900,000. depending on the entire structure. And your capital gains can be spread out over years versus taking capital gains hit that right when you sell it. Is
Yeah,
that
I
accurate?
mean, I forget the percentages, but typically on a several $100,000 deal, they're going to save at least 15% on their taxes. So don't quote me, I'm not a CPA, but if you look at capital gains versus ordinary income, you'll find that that's the case. Yes.
Yep.
So back to what you just said, I can sit down with them, across from them, next to them, and we can break out a piece of paper and I can show them, hey, even at 900,000, if I add interest to this, let's look at what that is, right? Let's see if that gets you to the million. Oh, wait, maybe it gets you to a million too. Well, that's more than you asked for, isn't it? And usually a seller doesn't mind if you give them more than they're asking for.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I've noticed a lot. And are you seeing this as well, where a lot of, especially on the residential side, but even on the commercial side, a lot of older individuals that are retired are just using their investments in their properties as passive income. It kind of pays for their lifestyle, right? They're interested in selling, but the reality is they don't need all that money right now, nor do they really want it. But if we can create that passive income stream where, hey, instead of selling it today and getting all that money, why don't we just pay you over the next 20 years and buy that building as seller financed? So now you're going to make more. You're going to still have the amount of money coming in on a monthly basis. Oh, but guess what? You no longer have to deal with any of the maintenance, any of the headaches, any of the tenants.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a win-win for you. And I'm taking on all the headaches and everything else. Have you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That, I mean, I feel like, especially right now, management is the biggest form of distress, right? And so, if you can take off the hassle factor from somebody,
Yes.
that's worth something. And typically a manager, charges, somewhere between 8 and 12%. So I mean, you can work that into the deal and get paid that 8 to 12%. And the pinnacle of real estate, if you talk to most people, is a triple net lease, right? Okay, well, if you don't want to do anything, that's fine. I'll give you a triple net lease on your own place. How's that sound?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I
So,
love that. When it comes to specifically, what would you say your specialty is? Like, what is the one thing that you feel like you are better at than anybody else in your market?
oh man, I don't, I don't know. I don't have that high of opinion of myself. I just, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm pretty good at deal structuring of any kind,
I was gonna
right?
say your structures are pretty creative. You know how to make about any deal work, it seems like.
Yeah, if you can't make a deal work for me with me, then it's probably not a me thing, right? And even if it's an all cash deal, right? Like I can do an all cash deal if it makes sense. Now I might have some kind of term in there that's different than you've ever seen before, but I might also be paying you more than any other person. So, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you handle situations when the property owner decides, yeah, maybe we don't want to sell right now, or the market conditions have changed and we're going to hold off?
Yeah, I say, okay, well that's fine. I ask them if they're sure, right? I ask them why that is, and you might find a why that's you find flimsy, or you might find a why that you find strong, or you might find a why because of X, Y, Z, and you might be able to drill into X, Y, Z and actually still do the deal, right? But if they absolutely said no, I wouldn't want to do it, I say, hey, well that's fine. But if you ever did do it, would you give me the first shot at it? And I'd be happy to pay you a little bit of money for the first shot at it. And the first shot at it looks like a first right of refusal for me, typically.
Yes. Do you try to get first right of refusals on, say you're buying a property from someone that you know owns multiple? Will you try to get that first right of refusal on their additional properties if they're not wanting to sell all of them up front?
Yeah, I try to get a first right of refusal on anything I can. Like,
Same.
and when I sell, I try to get a first right of refusal buyback.
Oh,
So,
interesting. So you put that into your sales contracts.
yeah, I try to. Like, it doesn't always get past the goalie, right? But I mean, think about this. You own a building or buildings or residential or whatever, right? And you've owned them for years and you're intimately familiar with them. Well, um, from time to time, I need capital, so I'll sell, right? And when I sell, if I know I like that asset, uh, I'll ask for that back. And if I get it back one day, great. If I don't get it back one day, great. But it gives you a string on the property. You're already familiar with it. You already know the neighborhood. You already know the building. You may or may not know the tenant if they're there that long. So, like, hardly anybody's going to know that piece of property better than you. Why not try to buy it back, right? And what's interesting about a first right of refusal is if you record it, then you could probably even sell that first right of refusal.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never even thought about getting a first right of refusal on something I sell, but that makes complete sense.
Could
Well, I
we?
mean, imagine this. Imagine you sell something and it's not quite for the price you want it to be, right? Maybe you get to closing and they stiff you, like they get upset about some inspection or something, right? And you've got to give some concession that you really didn't want to give, and you're upset about it, right? You might but you have that first right of refusal in there. You might go to Ryan and say, Ryan, you know, I'm short about 10 grand because of this. Why don't you buy this first right of refusal? Because, one day it might be worth a lot more than 10 grand. So,
Yeah, I'm thinking like this could be a really strategic move if you've owned that property for a while, kind of like you're explaining, and you know some of the properties surrounding it or the owners of those properties, this would almost be a strategy you could use that, hey, I'm going to get the first right of refusal, and then I'm going to go sell that to my neighboring property that I know has a little bit of interest. They just don't have the funds to buy the property right now. But at
yeah,
some point, they probably are going to want this. So let's sell that to them for a little
for
more
20.
cash. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I like to boomerang my properties if I can. Like, I've got the most boomerangs I've done is like five. I've done five on the same property. So I don't think I'm going to get to six because we sold to a civilian. So
Could,
we'll see.
could you explain? You were talking about boomeranging a property on Twitter, and I just wasn't super familiar. Like, what do you mean boomerang? Like, you said you bought it multiple times. Is that just like? I guess expand on that so I understand.
Yeah. It's like you ever bite into an apple? You take that first bite and then you get a second bite and then you get a third bite. It's just a second bite and a third bite, however many bites of the apple, right? So I had this. It's just a house, right? I had this
Sure.
house that and really I don't know if I've ever owned it. I mean, this has been a multi-year thing, so I do a lot of deals, so I don't remember them all, right? So I bought a house. I say I bought a house, but I lent money on a house and a hard money loan, right?
Okay.
Um, and that hard money loan, they fixed and flipped the property, right? And so I
Mhm.
made money on the hard money loan the first time, right? And then I actually kind of brokered a deal between my borrower and a buyer. So I got paid on that, right? And um, then that buyer needed to get out of that property, and I brokered another deal. And by brokered, I just mean, like, I had some person that wanted a house, and I had somebody that wanted capital, and I just put them together, and they gave me a fee, right?
So
So um, it wasn't really a fee that like I had there was a lien on the property that I had to release, right? So
Yep.
I'll try to be clear for the people. I wasn't actually taking a fee. Um, but I did get paid. I got paid, right? And
Right.
so anyway, it changed hands to the second buyer, right? And then man, there's five. What are
Essentially, what he's done though is he's been able to make fees multiple times on the same properties without really
yeah,
ever owning it. Is what he means by boomeranging it. So he just
Right.
continues to make
yeah.
income and profit off of this deal without ever really owning anything, which is
Yeah, I
huge.
might have owned it, but I don't remember. Sorry.
That's
It's
a
just,
good problem to
I would say
have.
good problems. Yeah.
I walked into a house one time and this guy said, "Hey man, you own the house across the street." And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Yes, you do." And I said, "No, I don't. No, my name's not on the deed." And I went home and I looked and I did own the house across the street.
Jesus.
I had no idea.
I love
Uh,
that. I mean, that
uh,
you're just so busy working and creating all different types of deals. I mean, you're gonna forget when you're doing so many deals, like everything that you own. Sometimes people think that's crazy, but
yeah.
it's not that
Yeah.
crazy. When you've got 1,000 things going on every day, you
Yeah.
forget those things all the time. I know
Well,
I do.
it was in the spreadsheet. It's just I didn't realize where I was,
Yep.
and I didn't I looked at the house one time. I mean, who knows?
Some of the
So
houses you might not even look at before you buy them. You just know the deals and the numbers work, and it's like, hey, I'm buying that. That makes sense.
let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned deal flow earlier when we started. Are your system, because you're doing a lot of deals, you don't even know what you own and what you don't because of the different structures you do, but are your systems just like crazy good and you're just getting a lot of stuff in, or do you have people out there hunting them?
Yeah. So my deal flow is not big compared to other people. I take a rifle, not a shotgun approach, right? So, there are plenty of people out there that like my good deal flow for me is I'm juggling, I don't know, 3 to 10 deals at any one time, right? Um, so like I, like I said, I take the rifle approach. I'm looking for specific things in purchasing a property, depending on the asset class, depending on the deal structure, whatever.
Mm.
Um, so you know, I wouldn't say I'm not a volume guy. Like I would rather have a big yield on one than small yields on 10. Right?
Okay.
Yes.
So you're just very targeted. You know what you're looking for. If something doesn't qualify, you're on to the next one. Like you're just very specific
Yeah,
of what you want.
yeah. I don't. There's no romance for me about a property.
So what's an ideal deal look like? If you got something today and it
Yep.
was like the ideal deal, what is that?
I don't
Like
know.
what asset class?
That
What
depends on the
location?
day, right? So people ask me this all the time. They're like, "Well, Casey, you seem to do a lot of deals, but like, what are you into, and what do you do on a daily basis?" And I'm like, "Man, variety is the spice of life, right?" So I'll tell you right now, right? I own some storage, for instance. I own some
Hmm.
industrial, right? I own a tiny bit of office. I may or may not own a house. I own notes, right? But like I buy multifamily. I will buy just about it. A mobile home park. Like I haven't bought a mobile home park for myself, but would I buy one? Yes. Have I tried to buy one? Yes. Um, and like I've got friends, right? So I my thing in life is to recruit allies, right? And so people
Absolutely.
call me up and they say, Casey, we know you can find a deal. We just sold something, right? I've got a 1031. Can you find somewhere to put the money, right? That's a good deal. And this is my criteria, and this is what I want as far as a return and et cetera, right? And so, if you are in the tents and if you are a friend, and if I have time, I might do that. I might do that for a fee, or I might do that for equity, or I might do that out of the goodness of my heart. But I will tell you, my time is becoming more and more limited all the time. So it's there's
You're a
less of
busy
that.
man.
Yeah, it's just there's too many balls to juggle. So
The tent's getting full.
yeah. So like so I don't buy a big volume. I'm targeted, but the perfect deal for me, I think that's so hard to quantify. Like in my mind, the perfect deal is something that takes no effort from me or hardly any effort, right? That's safe and secure and that makes a good yield, right? So like I have storage facilities, right? That's great, but that does take some management. Would I like to have, triple net leases on, JP Morgan banks, right? I don't think JP Morgan's going out of business because I don't think the government will let them, right? I wouldn't have to worry about it, but is my yield probably pretty small on those? Yeah, probably is. So it might not check all the boxes for me. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Just kind of depends on exactly what it is. And you're open-minded, it sounds like. You're open to looking at all different opportunities, and whatever makes sense or you feel comfortable with, you're gonna jump on.
yeah. NOI is the vision, no matter what asset class you're in, So
Yes.
yeah.
Couldn't agree
Then
more. Let's talk a little bit on your Twitter here. We're gonna speed
yeah.
up and just tell us about your Twitter. What got you interested in Twitter? Why did you go so hard on Twitter? I mean, your Twitter's been great. You provide great value, in my opinion. Always helping and helping people put together creative thoughts, in my opinion, on deals. What got you passionate about that?
Yeah. Well, so during COVID, I sat there and I watched uh, Huber and Chris Powers and Moses and several
Some big
others.
players.
Yeah, if I didn't put you on there, it's not because I don't like and respect you, right? Um,
I was kind of wondering why I wasn't on there.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I saw them blow up, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, this is pretty brilliant. That and not only that, but I thought, man, this community is really cool. They call it, retwit, real estate Twitter, essentially, right? Um, they're helpful. If you don't know something, or you can talk to somebody in any asset class that's way bigger than you, or you can help out people that are smaller than you. It's very collaborative. Um, so I found it fascinating because, like, I eat lunch by myself most days. I'm a solopreneur for the most part, right? And COVID, that's even worse because I'm just sitting in my basement doing push-ups, saying to
Yep.
myself, I've got to, I've got to get out of this somehow, right? And so I didn't really say anything. I just replied to people. But I thought to myself, man, I was talking to my mentor one day, and I was like, "Man," he's like, "Casey, you're doing really good. I'm really proud of you." He's like, "I just hope you give back." And I'm like, "I probably need to do more of that because I've got plenty to say, as you've probably seen, probably to my detriment." Um, and and the other impetus was, I wanted to learn to write better. So I took a couple of courses to try to write better. I still think I'm not very good at that. The hillbilly in me just, you can't get that freak hillbilly out. Um,
Never
yeah.
leaves.
Well, and I thought I could help some people, and I hope I have. I think I have, but
Yeah, I would say you definitely
Definitely.
have.
I mean, you just had a post today or yesterday, I can't remember, but you're just talking about basic uh making an offer on a property and basic negotiation. And it was a short thread, wasn't very long, but for me, I was like, I took a couple things from that. I'm like, I don't know why I'm not doing this. And like a simple thing like, hey, I know there's always the last minute buyer coming in and making a better offer than mine. Is that not going to
yeah,
happen? And like you're putting in a deal like just those words. So when they try to pull back on it later, you can go back to the conversation, be like, hey, I thought we weren't doing this. And so just those, I guess, simple thread, short, but you worded it very well, easy to understand. And I mean, you say you're not a good writer. You're writing at my level at least, because I was like, this is great.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I so well, I it's I wrote that this morning. I woke up at 3 a.m. I got that done by 5, but I had some other things
Wow.
on my mind. But yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of that lately. Not there's always a lot of that. Like you make an offer and then all of a sudden there's another offer. Okay, well, days on market. This thing's been sitting for 6 months plus. It's overpriced. I don't really believe you, right? And so
Right.
I tried to give a perspective on, okay, what is a dialogue or what are the steps you can take to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, or at least minimize it, right? And
Hmm.
I hope I conveyed that well, but we'll see.
I would say you do a very good job on there. So thank you for all of your content and what you provide to real estate Twitter and everything else. Cause I've gathered many valuable things and come up with different ideas. And like, it's really opened my mind on some of the creative ways of doing deals by reading what you're putting on yours, as well as commenting on other people that are maybe struggling to get a deal closed out. The different advice and thoughts that you offer are very intriguing.
Well, just remember, free advice is worth what you pay for it. So
That's exactly right.
uh,
Oh
just
man, well,
slay the
Casey, hey, I don't
disclaimer.
want to take any more of your time. We really appreciate you coming on the show today. And before we wrap up here, how can people find you? How can people get a hold of you or follow you?
Yeah, just at Twitter, at Casey Mericle. It's CaseMericle. So that's where you can catch me. Yeah, DM me. Don't get on my LinkedIn. I won't pay attention to you.
Hey,
I
I
just
love how
added you on
honest.
LinkedIn.
Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on, Casey. And yeah, everybody listening or watching on YouTube, I'll link his Twitter because there's no reason to do anything else. In the description. Thanks everybody for listening to the Xplor Show. Please like, subscribe, and comment wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.